What is up, guys? Welcome back or welcome to my channel if this is your first time. This is my channel Pixie Dust and Spirit Alchemy, where we talk about all sorts of things taboo, occult, paranormal, witchy, any sort of things that, seem kind of weird to a lot of people. We talk about all that here. This is the first video I've been able to publish in February. I was sick for a long time, and then I was out of town for a long time, and just have not gotten around to the video putting out that I would have liked to. But that being said, it is only February, and we still have 10 more months to go after this. And I will be doing my best to put more videos out regularly, maybe more than one a month at least. So in addition to this one, I've got another book review coming up on a new book topic, new book subject with a friend. So stay tuned for that. In addition, of course, there will be the last two Wealth Magic podcast episodes coming up probably next month, at least for the next one, and then the following one after that will be whenever we get around to it. So guys, today's video is not wealth magic related, and it is not like a ritual related. It's not gallery of magic related, so, before you click out of this video, if that does not resonate with you, this video will be about healing the witch wound, in addition to my personal story of how I got into magic and spirituality. So guys, let's get started. So first of all, for those that don't know, what is the witch wound? And why is this, what is that? So, the witch wound, whether or not you've heard the term, and it might even be self-explanatory just based on the name of itself, the witch wound. Well, obviously, there's a wounded witch somewhere in there. So the witch wound originates from within the feminine psyche, regardless of what your gender is, regardless of if you're male or female in this lifetime, or non-binary, or whatever your gender is. This wound originates from a feminine energy, right? And in history, over the course of time, a lot of the witches that were, burned at the stake or persecuted and executed and hunted were women, right? I'm sure there were men involved as well, but it was escaping from the patriarchy that these witches were trying to achieve, and were met with brutal ends basically every time. And that doesn't stop in history, that wound. It continues in ancestral lineage, and basically, so to define it specifically, the witch wound is a collective intergenerational spiritual wound that keeps people afraid of their own magic and their own power. And that is a quote from Celeste Larson, Mage by Moonlight. I guess that's a book or a website. I honestly just found it on a website because I wanted to give you guys a precise definition before going into my own. So it's essentially being afraid of your own magical power, in whatever extent that means. So the people that watch my channel, I would assume, hopefully correctly, are magically inclined, at least spiritually. And if you're not practicing, practicing magician, then maybe you at least have a curiosity if you found this channel or if you're watching this video. And whatever that curiosity stems from, whether you've been a witch your whole life, maybe you were raised in a family of witches, which I don't hear very often, but I'm sure that exists somewhere. Or maybe you were, from whatever religion you stem from, maybe now or in the past, recent past or long past, you've had a curiosity about magic. Or maybe it's just always been an internal thing that you felt about yourself. The energies that surround daily life that are mystical and unknown and powerful. And not everyone has awareness of those things. Not that they're incapable, but that they just don't recognize it. They aren't open to it. So, along with this witch wound in our ancestral past, whether it's your own ancestors or other witch ancestors, or the witch ancestors of others, it has created, along with it, a deterioration of feminine energy. And I'm not going to get into the oppression of women and all that, because if you are somewhat knowledgeable of the history of the world, in the last 100 years at least, you should know, I would presume, that women have come a long way in their roles in day-to-day life and in the freedoms that they have and that they fight for and what they can and can't do. And not all those wounds, not all that oppression of women comes from the witch wound. A lot maybe, but not all. So specifically today I'll be talking about this witch wound. So the other day it was interesting. I actually had an Akashic Records reading done with a friend of mine, my second one, over the course of the last 4 or 5 months. And the specific question that I'd asked, for those of you that don't know what an Akashic Records reading is, it's essentially a reading done with somebody similar to like a reading that a medium would do, where they channel your spirit guides and ancestors, except in this sense, they are channeling the 9th Arcturian Council, which are 9th dimensional or interdimensional beings, guardians, that essentially communicate to you about the history of your soul or spirit, and not to say just your soul in this lifetime, but your soul in every lifetime, from the moment that you existed as an energetic atom or being, that history. And you go into these readings with a question, and my question this time around was, it had to do with me and my friend that was giving the reading, because we were curious about our relationships in past lives, because we felt like there was possibly something there. And to spare the rest of the reading, there was one thing that they pointed out, and in our past lives, me and my friend's past lives together, we'd been all sorts of things, from friends to merchants on the street singing to children to lovers, and at the same time, in one of these lifetimes, we were also witches that were burned at the stake together or killed in a brutal way together. So fast forward to modern day life, or today, right? And, here I am making these YouTube videos about magical topics with my face out there for the public to see. I'm not hiding behind... I'm not just, doing a podcast where you just listen to my voice. You see my face, too. There's not much anonymity, really. Which I don't mind. I mean, obviously, if I did mind it, I wouldn't be doing it. And then for my friend, she does these Akashic Records readings. She teaches Kundalini Yoga and lives a similar spiritual path of her own. But both of us were raised in churches, grew up in Christian dogma. Almost in the extreme way, at least for myself. I'm not 100% sure about her own upbringing, but it doesn't matter because this video is more so about me. But my Christian dogma upbringing, so just a little background on that. I grew up in church, raised Anglican, Episcopalian, and was very active. My family was always very active in the church. My mother was the choir director and the church organist of the liturgical church services that we attended. And it wasn't ever a modern church. It was always like, the I'm going to mess up the year, but it was like, one of the early, like the 1920-something prayer book or something, and, in these like similar, resembled Gothic-style architectural cathedrals, with the robes and the choirs and the processions and just the historical ceremonies that churches embody and have practiced for thousands of years. That's what I grew up in. And in church every Sunday, probably in church on Wednesday too for choir rehearsal, for my whole life. And in addition to that, I even went to church school, also an Episcopalian school, and it was very small private school, and then I went to a Catholic high school. So for up until, my first day of school in preschool or whatever, up until the time I graduated high school, my world was Christianity and the church. That's all I really knew, yes, we learned about other religions and stuff, but they don't teach you to be open-minded to believing those religions. They're like, well, you can learn about this, but like Christianity is like where it's at. And I just never, as I got older, I came to realize that I never was there I never felt the sort of spiritual communion with the church or with God there that we were supposed to feel. That I assumed everybody was in the church feeling, because why else would they be in the church if they didn't feel a spiritual connection? And I didn't, as a kid, I didn't know what that was. I was just going along with my parents and doing what they told me to do and singing in the choirs and helping in the masses and stuff. And, I didn't think about, I actually feel God and feel this presence and feel, a connection to this religion, regardless of being baptized or not. And as I got older and became more of my own person, especially when it came to learning about myself and my own sexuality and coming out, because I am a gay person. I don't only date men. I usually date women. And in the church, that's not accepted. At least not in the church that I grew up in. Not to say that it's not accepted in all churches. There are newer churches with non-denominational or even more modern-day Anglican churches that have women priests and stuff. And that was always like a big dilemma in the church growing up. But that's another story. And, I just got to the point where I was like, why the F would the church not accept me? Like, I'm a decent person. And it was a really hard time for me. It was a very dark time, because I felt betrayed by this faith that I had grown up in, and the reality that I had known for so long was crumbling. And I didn't know where that put me, what it meant for me as a person of faith. And I didn't know what direction to take from there either. So now, back to the witch wound, okay? So how does this witch wound manifest in us, in people? Well, essentially, the witch wound manifests as fear of, your own power, fear of any sort of practice of your own that's magical. And I myself experienced a lot of fear before getting into magic and spirituality, because I was like, oh, that's the devil's work, because that's what they teach you, or that's what I was taught in church growing up, is to renounce this other stuff that's witchcraft and bad, ooh. When in actuality, Christianity stems, and a lot of the traditions in that religion stem and are taken from paganism, pagan practices that date thousands of years before Christianity even existed, because paganism is more so a religion based on the connection to the earth. And along the historical lines of women being suppressed with this witch wound and whatnot, there was a disconnect among these witches and among women's, not necessarily women, but among the feminine psyches. There's a disconnect between that and the connection to the earth. We removed ourselves, we were withdrawn from that. And the witches of Salem were probably just out in the forest, like, doing their thing, dancing around a cauldron, singing under the moonlight, singing to the spirits. And that was always thought of as, oh my God, like, worshiping the devil, oh my God, because of people that don't understand it and don't take the time to understand. And instead of learning about it or asking, they rather sort of implement their own faith and beliefs on everybody to be correct, right? And then shun and hunt those that believe differently, resulting in sort of the end of witches, except it wasn't really the end of witches, because here we are. And, in a sense, switching from one religion into magical practices is a coming out of its own, especially for those in the public eye, like myself and other YouTubers and, social media people that are here giving spiritual, magical messages, and practices. Like, I got my face out there. There's no hiding, like I said. And I had to come to terms with that, like, if I'm going to be doing this, then I'm going to be doing it. I need to be okay with the fact that anybody could find these videos. You know, anybody from my past, anybody, my parents, my mom has found it one time and was like, what is this? And it was my video on the 72 angels of magic and the Shem talisman, and, you know, just like, that's my YouTube channel. But but in order to heal this witch wound, we have to get past those fears that come with stepping into our power and stepping into our magic. Because if we really truly resonate with the witch archetype, or the witch, you know, the magical archetypes, whatever your beliefs are in witchcraft and spirituality, we can't fully embrace it until we accept that part of ourselves. And within that, there's an unlearning process that takes place, an unlearning of the old beliefs that we've held on to for so long, in order to really step into this sovereignty, right, into this power, into this wholeness of ourselves and of our psyches. The witch wound is definitely a real wound that needs to be healed. And as I've gotten into my more spiritual practices, it's been told not by me, but it's been told to me, and actually, now that I'm thinking about it, it was in both of the Akashic Records readings that I've had done that confirmed that I personally come from a line of ancestral witches, you know, and I'm not the first in my family to take this path or to be shunned for it. And that makes sense to me because, you know, my aunt is also very witchy and spiritual, and, you know, she doesn't denounce her Christian upbringing or faith, and neither do I. I'm not saying, like, fuck the church, you know, I'm saying that it's not my truth. What I grew up to believe, you know, some things seemed real. I believe that Jesus was a divine human being. You know, I hold on to my Christian values and morals. There are even Christian witches. I don't necessarily consider myself a Christian witch. Take some and leave the rest. Like, if it doesn't vibe, it doesn't vibe. As I said earlier, I never really just believed that. I don't know. I started having questions, you know. I was like, well, if Adam and Eve were the only two human beings on the planet, and they had Cain and Abel, where the fuck did everybody else come from? You know, I remember thinking that in, like, middle school or something, and I was like, this just doesn't work for me. These Sunday school stories, they're not working for me. I have more questions, because this doesn't make any sense. How did it all just happen? So I started finding answers for myself, you know, going outside of the church and looking into other religions and other beliefs and other practices, and then one thing led to another, and now, you know, I've read some of the Gnostic Gospels and realized, you know, more of the truth of how the Bible was written and a lot that was taken out of it. And, you know, that's been rewritten by humans, and religion is essentially, you know, the way that it's been used is more in form of a weapon, you know, it's a matter of control and fear-based, ironically. Like, and then feeling personally rejected by the church was huge, because I was like, where, you know, it's just, this has so long been my life, and now you're saying that because of my truth of who I am and what I'm finding out about me, that like, I can't, have communion, or I need to change my life? No, I mean, there are people that do that. There are people that are oppressed enough back into this fear by their own family, you know, or by their friends at church or their faith, that never break out of that. They stay stuck because it's comfortable and it's easier. Is it right? No, not necessarily. But a lot of people, possibly the majority of people, have silenced their own voices and have silenced their own truths and their own magic. So now, just a little bit more background on myself as a child and everything. I was always very mystical and spiritual as a child, which I didn't realize until later on, you know, was doing self-reflection and stuff. Realizing that I built houses for fairies ever since I was capable of doing that. and firmly believed in fairies, to the point of being in 5th grade once upon a time and taking a poll from all the students in my grade, asking them if they believed in fairies, because I was like, duh, everyone believes in fairies. And literally, this is what crushed my dreams, you guys. This is what stopped my spirituality in 5th grade for a long time, because not a single person in my 5th grade class at this Christian school I went to believed in fairies. Only one person said yes after she said no, because she was like, oh yeah, the tooth fairy exists, so yes. But only the tooth fairy exists. And I was just like, all right, well, shit. And I'm pretty sure it crushed my dreams as a 5th grader. And after that, I stopped building fairy houses. I really stopped trying to connect or communicate with them, stopped trying to look for them, because I was like, maybe they're right. Just put them on the back burner and went to church as I was supposed to. As I got older, I realized, learning about transubstantiation in the church, which is essentially, it's what transubstantiation is in the Catholic Church, is turning the flesh and blood of Christ into the bread and wine of communion, to then be consumed by those of that faith. That sounds like some magic to me. That sounds like some weird cannibalistic sort of magic, if you really want to get into it. But regardless of the cannibalistic part, that's essentially magic. Like, you can't tell me, like, can I turn my own flesh and blood into bread and wine? I haven't tried, but I don't think so. I don't really want to do that anyways. But when I had that thought, I was like, okay, I see what's going on here. There's some deeper stuff that I have not been told, because they don't want us to know. And so, with this progression of thoughts that I had, of questioning things, came a learned and taught awareness of ghosts and spirits and psychic phenomenon. As I got older and started getting into medium work as, the person having the reading done, it just made me believe so much more. Just life in general teaches children the wrong thing. They teach us that seeing is believing, when in fact, in actuality, it is the opposite. Believing is seeing. Believing is seeing. If you believe something, then you will see it play out as much as it does. And that comes, that can be true for religions. A lot of people remain in the truth, do find truth in religion. And that's not a bad thing. It just becomes a bad thing when you hide behind your religion and shun or are ignorant of others and hate them for their religion and their faith, and saying that yours is the only right way to get to heaven. And, this also just goes into the fear that the church instills upon people of, like, you must live a certain lifestyle or you won't go to heaven. And so many people are afraid of going to hell. And I understand. I mean, I have been too, but ultimately, if you practice witchcraft, with good intentions and not, in order to cause destruction, like I said, it's not enough to send you to hell. But if you believe that it is, then it might be. The power of belief is enough to change one's life. And when I realized that when I was younger, I came back around to my belief in fairies. Because I was like, you know what? I believe it, and the more I believe it, the more real it becomes to me. And that is true in the sense also of astrology. Astrology is really what escalated or prompted me getting into spirituality, because, I listened at first to people that were like, oh, well, I don't align with the Sagittarius sun thing. But no one was talking about all the other placements of the planets that we have in our charts and all the aspects of them, the relationship between the planets and the houses, and how all of that is really what makes up your consciousness and your psyche and your soul at this time. It's not just your sun sign. And hopefully everyone that knows or watches this channel knows that by now. And if you don't, then check out your full birth chart, because that is really what changed my life. The first time somebody showed me my moon sign, in my full birth chart, I made so much sense of it. Because I was like, well, this makes sense why I'm connected to this person or have this relationship with this person, because, you know, we have these signs and these makeups and blah, blah, blah. And I continue to find truth in it, and I even find truth in it to the point where I understand how others aren't believers of this stuff, because, you know, maybe that's just not how they're created to think or believe. And that's okay. It was a trusted friend of mine, my friend Arjuna, actually, who we've collaborated on some videos before. He also has a YouTube channel. He was the one that I found his YouTube video, you know, at a time where I was still, didn't really have a faith, but was wanting a faith to get into, and I found his videos on magic, on wealth magic. And I was like, what is this? From there, you know, it led into my readings of the Kabbalion and the Kabbalah and other books, and now I'm constantly learning new things. You know, I still don't really give myself a label as to what my beliefs are. It's just what they are. So remaining open to our beliefs and not dimming them down because of what other people may try to put upon us as far as their own beliefs of what is right and wrong, that's when we can fully shine and embrace this power that we have. So this is kind of all I really have to say on this topic. I believe, you know, my witch wound is not fully healed, even myself, I don't think. There's a couple other methods of healing, of like rituals that I want to do in order to fully release and heal this, but it is something that I wanted to talk about because I had made this video originally, and it was, I redid it because I just didn't like it, and then that same week is when the witch wound topic kept coming up, and I was like, okay, well, let me tie this into my video too, because I think it needs to be talked about. And love others still that maybe don't agree. You know, maybe love from a distance if they get all mad and rude and try to, you know, hurt you in any way, physically, emotionally, or mentally. Love from a distance, but don't shun them, you know, because then it's just reversing the wound, and we don't want to do that. We want to rebalance. Ultimately, we're rebalancing the scales. You know, the earth needs, people need this connection to the earth to be brought back. We are the earth's children. We are, you know, God's children, or we are the universe's children, or we are somebody's children, no matter what you believe. But the earth is our home. And in my beliefs now, the earth is more powerful than the church. And that's kind of where I came to believe, you know, this is the path that's led me here. And I'm still new in this path, you know, I still have a lot of learning to do for the rest of my life. But I'll be doing it happily. So guys, thank you for taking the time to watch this video. I hope that it helped you kind of come to terms with the witch wound, or if you hadn't heard that term before, you know, now you know what it is. So this is probably a longer video. I just like to talk sometimes. But I hope you guys are having a wonderful February, and continue to explore wherever your beliefs take you. Continue to see after you believe. Alright guys, until next time, peace.